Hey everybody, it's Eric Murray from thesugarhuddle.com. Make sure to go onto the Sugar Huddle and check things out on there. I'm trying to add stuff every day if I can, especially once the season starts for sure. But anyways, I wrote an article on there the other day called "The NFL's 50 Shades of Gray," not what you think. But anyways, it was talking about the NFL, how they've kind of expanded on kind of their previous rule with defenseless player and their helmet to helmet rule, mainly the helmet to helmet part of it, but essentially what the new rule says, and it was definitely tested out in last night's Hall of Fame game with the Bears and Ravens, but new rule essentially says that if a player leads with the helmet when they're trying to make contact with another player, whether it's even lower body shots, if you're quote unquote leading with the helmet, you can get penalized for it. And I understand the NFL's angle on it. Ryan Shazier, the Steelers linebacker, of course, had that hit that had paralyzed him. He eventually recovered from it, but paralyzed him last year against the Bengals. He's recovered now, but he's probably never going to play again. And there's a lot of guys that have bad tackling form, and we see it all the time. A lot of guys that are dropping their head, trying to make tackles, trying to make contact. Just, kind of being a little bit undisciplined. So I understand the NFL's angle, and they're saying that, they can penalize a guy 15 yards if they deem it, leading with the helmet, and they can even possibly eject him depending on how, atrocious it is apparently. But it's just one of those things where, the NFL, they love to operate in their gray areas. I've said it once, and I'll say it many times before. The NFL loves its gray areas. Some of these rules could be a little bit more black and white, and they always find a way to have just leave them just so open for interpretation. Think about the catch rule, how crazy that had been for the last several years. National anthem policy obviously is something that people have been talking about, and then you think about this, defenseless player targeting rules along those lines have been open for interpretation for years. But recently we've seen a lot of players up in arms about it, because offensive players can actually get penalized for this too, because you see like receivers and running backs that sometimes initiate contact with the helmet, but a lot of times they don't get called, aren't going to get called for anything like that. And even yesterday's Hall of Fame game, the Ravens and Bears, there were 4 of those penalties called, and they were all against defensive players, and 2 of them were pretty bad calls. The one Ravens defensive back led with his shoulder, hit the guy in his midsection, and yet the ref still called it helmet to helmet, and gave him the flag. And there was another one in the end zone trying to break up a play, and they were trying to call it defenseless, and it really wasn't. And then there was another play where an offensive player initiated contact in the open field. I believe it was a tight end, and didn't get called, so no surprise there. So it's mainly going to affect the defensive players like it usually does, but a lot of people have been really weighing in on the issue. You think about the Eagles players this past week, when the referees came and visited them, and they discussed, what kind of goes into this rule, and they showed them some clips of different plays from last year that now be deemed illegal. And apparently Eagles players thought a lot of those plays looked like just normal routine tackles. Malcolm Jenkins, the hit that he had on Brandon Cooks in the Super Bowl was totally legal, but when the Eagles presented that clip to the referees that were in attendance, there might have been 4 of them. I can't remember what the exact number was. But anyways, they were split. They were divided, and they didn't really know what to tell the Eagles players. So a lot of Eagles players kind of left that meeting confused. That's basically what linebacker Nigel Bradham had said. And, of course, Richard Sherman, who's not afraid to speak his mind, he said in a nutshell that basically the rule is dumb, and the NFL is going to see that when they see how badly they kind of like screw it up, and just all the complaints people are going to have. And then, last night, people were already talking about some of those plays. The NFL said, of course, that there's, preseason's a great time to throw additional flags, throw more flags, because then you can study the tape and you can go over it and see what you did right, what you did wrong. But every time the NFL is experimenting with these new rules, they do that in the preseason, and it doesn't matter, because the preseason games doesn't matter who wins or lose, but at the end of the day, they still screw it up badly in the regular season. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you're still screwing things up, so what does it matter? So yeah, I think this is something that's going to be interesting, because you just wonder how many teams could lose a game over this rule. And again, it could happen to an offensive player, but generally it's probably going to be a defensive player they're going to call it against. And you just wonder, less than 2 minutes left, defense makes this great play to maybe end the game, and the offense gets new life because they call a penalty and say that the guy led with the helmet. It's like, they're just making it so impossible for guys to play the game anymore. For the longest time with the defenseless receiver rule, guys were trying to figure out what the target zone is, and it got to the point where guys were like, we really don't want to dive at guys' knees and ruin their careers, tear their ACLs, but that's the only choice we have. Well, even now, if they dive at the knees and they lead with their helmet, they're going to get penalized. And the thing is, a lot of these, even like form legitimate tackles, proper tackles, a lot of times you're going to kind of be leading with your head when your body is going to be going full force into somebody. So it just seems like this is going to be a disaster and another, NFL gray area, of course. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how it plays out during the course of the season. Right when you think the NFL is doing something right, when they fix the catch rule finally, which supposedly it's fixed, and it looks like, watching yesterday's game, there were a couple close catches, and they said they were still catches, so that was good to see. But seeing those plays just in the Ravens Bears Hall of Fame game yesterday. Again, I know it's only one game, and the refs are trying to figure it out, but this already looks like a disaster, and it's getting to the point where it's going to turn into almost like a flag football type league, a 7-on-7 passing league, and you don't want to see that. Now, again, I understand the NFL safety angle, and part of that is they're trying to cover their butt because they don't want to deal with more lawsuits down the line. But again, you have to kind of let the guys play a little bit. It's football, and as long as tackling is part of the game until literally it does become a flag football league, as long as tackling is part of the game, you're going to have these issues. You're going to have guys that are going to get banged up. You're going to have concussions and things like that, and that's just unfortunately part of the game. It's a gladiator type sport. These guys know what they signed up for, so certainly you want to see everybody safe, and you hate to see all these guys that have CTE and all these problems years later, and you definitely don't want to see somebody get paralyzed on the field. And again, proper tackling, proper form tackling goes a long way in that. But it just seems like, I know the NFL is saying, okay, basically this is going to discourage the bad tackling by creating this rule. But again, you could have guys that are doing perfectly proper, legitimate form tackling, safe tackling, and the NFL could still say they're leading with the helmet. So it's like, what the heck are you supposed to do if you're a defensive player? So I just kind of feel like this rule, which I'm sure they'll keep in place for several years, just like they did with the catch rule, it's probably going to go down in flames pretty quickly. So, NFL TV ratings have gone down like 7 or 8 or so percent last year or two, and something like this, on top of all some of the other problems that they're still having, just does not bode well for the league. So, me as a fan of the NFL, like everybody else, you want to see the NFL thrive, but this is something that's going to probably turn more people off. So the NFL's got to figure this out quick, because you're just going to continue to have disgusted and dissatisfied players. Andrew Sendejo for the Vikings wore that hat around training camp that said, make football violent again. At the end of the day, look, you got to know that things are going to happen in football, and unfortunately that's just part of it, and you can only make the game so safe without, until you, again, turn it into a full-on flag football league, you're only going to be able to make it so safe. So anyways, those are just some quick thoughts I have about that new rule, kind of a disaster already. But anyways, please I'm Eric Murray, and please go to thesugarhuddle.com and check out my stories. There's a YouTube icon on there that links right to this channel, and also links to my LinkedIn and my Twitter, which is at Eric Murray Sport, no S on the end of that. Links to my Facebook as well. And go ahead, subscribe to this channel, and try to go ahead and check out my thesugarhuddle.com every single day. I'm trying to put some pretty good content on there, and once we get in the season, I'll try to put more and more on there on a daily basis. I might eventually redesign my webpage, but yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back with the AFC East preview maybe tomorrow night or by Sunday at the latest. So thank you.